an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Veronica Mars, Season 1, Episode 11, Silence of the Lamb. Co-hosted by Jaime and commissioned by Jaime and Nancy. This is all very new and exciting. And this episode was a weird one. Was this just me? This is a weird one, right? We'll see. Welcome to Spoil Me.
I love
Welcome
this
to
episode.
the show, everyone. Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, but I found myself like off balance the whole time.
Well, it's two very different stories going on.
I think it's how high stakes what's going on with Veronica's dad is. Like, everything that we've been dealing with has been, you know, people being abducted or there being like a threat, but nothing has actually happened. But this is like a serial killer. And I think that's what changed the vibe of it for me. I was like, oh, word? We're going to do this now? So yeah, we should introduce ourselves. I don't usually have to worry about doing that because I don't have a co-host often. I'm Natasha.
I'm Jaime.
And Jaime has a cool white microphone, which you guys could see if you were here in the crowdcast with us.
It's a very really fancy podcasting microphone, actually. It's like made for podcasting.
It looks like something from like a 1960s radio station. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can you see the thing it's hanging on? Hold on.
Nice. That's the stuff, baby. Nancy says you look very official. One of the things that I'm going to be taking advantage of while Jaime is co-hosting with me is my ability to pause and drink tea while Jaime talks here and there.
Oh, I have to talk?
Occasionally. If you can fit a word in.
Nah, I'll try.
All right. So this episode, tell me what makes it something that's near and dear to your heart.
I really like the story about Mac being switched at birth with Madison.
Okay.
I thought I was not expecting that at the beginning of it. And then when it happens, it's just so sort of sad. I really like Mac. Also, we meet Deputy Leo in this.
Excuse me. Yeah. I think that might have been part of what the weirdness was for me this episode.
Because you know him as Schmidt.
Wait, what?
Do you watch New Girl? Did you watch New Girl?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
He's that actor is in New Girl?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no. It's more, I think that she found him so charming and was genuinely bummed when he like kind of was like, oh, so you're just gaming me. I guess I'll leave you by yourself. And I found him super irritating. Like, I really hated him, to be honest. From the moment we meet him, when he's like in the meeting about the serial killer and asking questions and stuff, I was like, who the fuck is this fucking weirdo they have here? And why did they make him a police officer? This dude looks like he's like 15 years old. And then he's like a major character later on in the episode. And I was like, oh, okay.
Well, he's supposed to be 20, so...
He looks like a young 20.
Yeah.
So
and I think they
apologies.
made him 20 so that Veronica being 17 and Leo being into her wasn't extremely squicky. Mm-hmm. Even though it's a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I try and like not be too horrible about that kind of thing because I know what it was like when I was her age. And there were dudes that I really thought were my own age also. And then I found out that they were much older than me. So, but yeah, it's a fine line. It's a real gray area.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel I think that now that you've pointed that out, I'm realizing that was a part of it, was that the show clearly wanted me to like be rooting for the two of them a little bit. And that Veronica was rooting for him in her way. And I did not feel that way at all. And I found it surprising that they seemed to interpret his weird attitude as like charming, when I found it grating and really artificial and just like it was just such a like sort of bro-y, I don't know. So yeah.
I found him charming, nervous and dorky.
I'll be honest, I did think he might be the serial killer for like a second.
Oh, that's too obvious.
Yeah, I figured he probably wasn't, but the fact that it turns out that he played and then was in a room with like soundproofing and stuff made me go like, wait, what? And just the whole, whenever there's a character that you haven't met before who seems to be too chummy with the person that's sort of like part of the investigative team, oftentimes it will turn out that that person is the one that committed the crime in the first place. That's a bit of a trope, you know? So I wondered if they were doing that.
Did you expect it to be Aaron Paul?
No, not even a little bit. I for a second when I saw it was him as the actor, I was like, really? Are they going to do that? But once he like acts so weird at the door, I was like, all right, I don't think they're going in this direction, because they're making it pretty obvious that he's like off a little. And I don't feel like they would come out that hard making him look suspicious if it were really him.
This was really early on in Aaron Paul's career.
Yeah, he looks like a baby, even with the facial hair, the sad facial hair. Oh, bless his heart.
I had actually forgotten that he was in it.
Just well, he's hardly in it. I could see how you could forget.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've rewatched Veronica Mars, and when I first watched this, I didn't know who he was. So he made no impact on me. And then I later was watching Big Love, and he had a big role on that. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
I didn't know he's
that
on
guy,
Big Love.
when he ended up on Breaking Bad.
Oh, man, Breaking Bad. Guys, I know that I'm probably the 400th person in your individual life to have told you this. But watch that show if you have not already.
It's perfect.
It really is as close to perfect as TV gets, I think.
Yeah. I can't think of a single bad thing about that show. It is perfect.
Except for the fandom. That'll be.
I watched it so far after the fact that I got to miss all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, let's start this off from the beginning. When we find out that the person that they thought had committed all of these strangling murders was the same one who had committed a bunch of other murders, and her father nailed the one guy, and because of pressure from the mayor, they decided to say it was all the work of him rather than a separate killer. And the Oakland Strangler is the one that he caught, but the Neptune crimes are what he calls the other set, where the women were not actually strangled, they were asphyxiated and then had guitar wire wrapped around their necks after the fact. That's not how they died, even though it looks like that when they find the bodies.
And it looks like that to an amateur or somebody who wants to pin the murders on someone who didn't do it.
So he finds out that they didn't catch the guy, and he's really like annoyed and upset, obviously, because people are continuing to get hurt, and he knew that it likely wasn't the same person, but nobody wanted to hear it because it was very inconvenient and they needed to close the door on this. And this is the kind of thing that I always like, I know it actually happens, and I know that this is like a legitimate temptation when you're somebody who works not even just in law enforcement, but in like a sort of public position, like a mayor, that you want to be able to like put something behind you and move on. But saying that one guy did it when most experts don't think he did it, you're just setting yourself up to be wrong, because inevitably someone else is going to get murdered eventually and you'll be outed.
What other murder mystery does this sound like from this show?
From this show? Is it Lily? Is somebody else dead?
Well, Veronica doesn't think that the guy they pinned it on did it.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like everybody, and when I say everybody, I'm including myself in that, seems to interpret her murder as like a tactical thing. Like somebody got rid of her because she knew something.
I'm not saying it's a serial thing. I'm just saying that it seems like there's a pattern with this police department where they will pin things on somebody where the pieces don't exactly match up, but they just want to close the case.
Yeah, that seems true. And they fucking come at him to get him back on the job. Keith, listen, I respect Keith. I think he did the right thing. I think he had really no choice as like a decent person other than to accept this offer and go back and whatever. I am so deeply resentful of it that it makes my skin want to like crawl off my body. Like if I were him, of the fact that they like completely threw him under the bus, and then the instant that they need his expertise after he tried to tell them they were wrong in the first place, they come crawling back. Oh, well, we need your help and people's lives are depending on you. And you know what? People's lives were depending on me before, but that didn't seem to matter to you then. I'm very angry.
Yeah.
That's understandable. At my tea. It's my cranky sip. I
don't like anybody that does anything bad to Keith Mars.
Yeah, you know what? That pretty much sums it up, actually. You're right. That's what it is. I'm on his team, like hard. Mm-hmm.
He's the best.
If anything happens where I find out that he's terrible, I'm going to be so heartbroken. I don't want any Me Too revelations about Keith Mars, please. Thank you. So
I can't tell you. That would be a spoiler.
It would be tragic. So while that whole thing with the killer is going on, we have this other subplot where it turns out that there's a huge market for getting dirt on your parents at Veronica's school,
which is kind of genius.
Now, let me ask you something. And this is really indicative of like the difference in relationships between different kids and their parents. Would you ever do this when you were in high school? Would you have done this? Tried to get dirt?
It wouldn't have even occurred.
Let's say it was a trend that like the whole school was all doing this. Would you be like, oh shit, I'm going to check into that?
No, because like with my mom, I would have been just more disappointed in her. And with my dad, I never wanted to be disappointed in him. So it really would have ruined my life either way.
I get that.
Even now, I don't necessarily want to know the kind of trouble they got into when they were younger.
And for me, like the only reason to want to know this stuff is so that you can sort of like throw it in their face during an opportune moment.
Yeah.
And I never had the balls to do that kind of thing with my parents. As I grow older, I realize that while I'm like cool about painting outside the lines in a lot of cases, in terms of like respect for authority, that is very deeply ingrained in me. And the only time I ever did anything like this was I knew for almost a decade that my mother had been having an affair. And she was like getting on my case about my relationship. And I finally threw that in her face and she had no idea I knew. But that was like something that I was emotionally attached to that information because I found out and had known for so long and watched her cover it up and think that I didn't know for so long. Just getting like a file and being like, well, I know that you got a DUI when you were 17. I just don't see myself like being willing to use that information when they're trying to ground me for something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you didn't grow up as a privileged
would it even work? Do you think? Like, would these parents stop and be like, you know what? You're right. I did get a DUI. Here are your car keys back, son. Like,
I think no, it wouldn't work because they'd be like, yeah, and that's why I know what's right and wrong, and I don't want you to do the same thing.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, like, you know, I don't hold anything against Veronica for like making a buck doing this. All she's doing is finding information that is out there. But I do wonder what the big plan is and whether it has been successful, because I was waiting for somebody to kind of come back towards the end of this episode and be like, oh, that was so awesome. I was totally able to throw it back in their face and they just didn't do anything. And thanks so much. And nobody ever does that. So I'm just like, well, then what are you guys doing with this?
Do you think that Mac's little entrepreneurial website idea would work? Would they make a bunch of money?
I feel like if
in this universe, not in reality.
If Veronica didn't already have photos with a target painted on her face, I feel like starting something like that would sure as fuck get it rolling. There's got to be stuff in some parents' past that they would kill to keep their kids from finding out. There has to be. Like, yeah. So
probably.
I feel like she'd be taking on quite a risk there. I mean, not that she's like a risk averse, as we know. But I feel like it would work for a while, and then some stuff would start to like really make it not worth it after a while for what she would reasonably be able to charge people, you know?
Yeah. If it was all just innocuous things like DUI or whatever, like small things, I think it would be fine in that respect. But if it were like, oh, by the way, your dad murdered somebody when he was 16, might be a problem.
Yeah, or like suddenly your mom's name does not go back further than such and such days, so obviously you're like in witness protection, or like God knows, you know. But it's an interesting because it gets Veronica a little bit of social clout, because people are all coming to her who like, you know, she doesn't exactly get a lot of interaction with her schoolmates, and
only when they need something.
Though. And we find out that there's this scene with this girl, Madison, who has the outfits in this show are close enough to now that they don't feel like completely out of style completely, but they're just far enough back that I'm like, oh, right, that was a thing.
Yeah.
Tiny skirts and Uggs, and like just far enough back. That's, if I wore that now, I wouldn't get a bunch of looks from people who are like, really? But there would be a couple folks who would be thinking, wow, really? It's about 5 years too late, sweetie, but okay, you know, like.
It's about 12 years
I
too
guess
late.
You're right. See, I don't have my finger on the pulse anymore, Jamie. I wear leggings every day now. And I used to think that was like.
I do too.
I used to think that meant that I had given up, that like once I reach an age where I'm only concerned about wearing stretchy, comfy clothes, it means that I'm officially done with life. And now I'm like, maybe it does. So what? Like, I'm not even mad about it.
The first thing I do when I get home from work is change out of my work clothes and either put on pajamas or put on like comfy, stretchy leggings. True. I don't want to be constricted.
Oh, they're the best. They're the best. I'm wearing them right now and just rubbing up on myself because they're so soft too. They're those brushed ones. Anyway, so this chick, it's her birthday, and she has like a fucking string quartet and like engraved invitations to her birthday party, and it's just a very over the top, like there's a cake delivered to the school kind of thing. It's really something. And apparently her birthday party is considered like the best birthday or the best party of the entire school year. And so this first kid that's talking to Veronica about getting information on his parents would very much like to get that information in time to make it to this party. This is so like, there's it's kind of thing that watching these rich kids, I'm just like, man, y'all suck. I hate you.
It seems really high school, but I don't remember there being parties like this when I was in high school.
There were 2 that I know of, and I did not go to either one. I heard about them after. But yeah, this sort of thing, it's like it's like what you want parties to be when you go to them. And then everybody is actually like sitting up against the wall in a folding chair with a Pabst Blue Ribbon and talking to the same friends that they talk to every day anyway, and not really meeting any new people. And there's definitely no dancing because the Smiths are playing, and good luck dancing to the Smiths.
Yeah, I can dance to the Smiths. It's weird dancing.
I believe you. So yeah, they wind up like her and Mac have this chat about starting a business behind the finding dirt. What is it? Digging dirt? Is that the name of the that comes up with?
I can't remember the exact name.
He has this amazing little website built and everything. Like, and Mac tells her, you know what? Actually, would you mind looking up some info on my parents? Because we are really nothing alike. And I can't figure out how we can even, like, she doesn't say be related, but there is that feeling to it. Because then when Veronica later comes to her with the news, she's like, okay, am I adopted? Is that what it is? Is that what it is? Just tell me.
And that's probably what she thought it was. Because who would ever think I was switched with another baby?
Yeah, this is something that I've read about actually happening. And it's just like, I mean, when babies don't look anything like a human, they just look like wriggling larvae. I can see how you could get them confused with one another. And all it is paperwork. Sure. There's just a tag on the box it's in. Like, you know, like pretty much. So you put the wrong label on it and it gets filed in the wrong place. You know, it's just like,
I used to wish when I was a kid that I was adopted or that I belonged to somebody else. And I realized how much I looked like my parents. And I was like, this is never going to work out. I'm not adopted.
Yeah, that never even entered my head. It was so clear that I was my parents' child.
Oh, it was clear that I was too. But I just hoped, like, maybe I'm not theirs.
Rachel just commented, man, I hate when I file the baby in the wrong box. Listen, so does the hospital because they're out $2 million now, apparently.
So I guess they figured this out when the girls were 4. And I guess by that point, a kid looks like what they're going to look like. Their faces aren't changing as much. So it makes some sense that it took that long. Although you would think it would have happened a little bit younger.
I'm wondering if there was something like a blood test that they had to get for something that like revealed it. There's not really detail about how that could happen, but I know that there are certain like immunizations and stuff that you can't get until you're a little bit older, and I don't know, something like that. But
yeah, I don't know. But they bonded with these kids, so they didn't want to give them up, which also makes sense.
It really does. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know if, I don't know what I would do.
I think then you've gotten $1 million. You've told everybody, like, we know she's not ours, but we don't want to give her up. We've raised her. She's our daughter. She's just not our blood daughter. You don't stay in the same town where she might find out that the girl she's been going to school with all her life is actually the person whose family you belong to. You move away. You got $1 million. You move away.
Remind me what happened, because Veronica looks into what happened to that $1 million and what happened to it, because I forgot.
With Mac's family, her dad invested in like a, jet ski 4-wheeler sort of company, like a dealership, and it failed after like 2 years. Yeah. And so he had to sell it. Well, he bankrupted. So it was bought out by someone else, and so they lost most of that money.
That's rough, man.
And Madison's family obviously invested it.
So, and Madison's family had money anyway. So probably, it's not like they just made a better decision and wound up rich and her parents didn't. They had money to begin with, but also were smarter with their money.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the one, because I'm not mad at Mac at all for the way that she feels about this whole thing. I would feel 100% the same way. But I do have to address the fact that Mac is supposed to be poor, and the house that she lives in is quite nice. And her parents, she describes as really liking NASCAR. And the mom that comes into her room with a bunch of snacks is the most like suburban Baptist mom. Like this is not what she made it sound like. I was expecting a really rough blue collar feel. Maybe they live in like a trailer or what are those double wides or something like that. Like I expected her situation to be a much bigger departure than it actually turned out to be. They're in a very nice home. Her mom seems totally
they're
normal. There's no like moment of me being like, oh wow, yeah, you seem totally different from your mom. The one thing that we have is her mom being like, oh, she's a weirdo vegan. But most parents are going to say that.
I think Mac, true. I think Mac's thing isn't that, she grew up poor. It's that she's nothing like her family. She doesn't look like them. She's not interested in the same things. She loves to read. She loves to be on the computer. She loves art, and they don't like any of those things. She just doesn't understand. Like, I'm nothing in any way like these people. I'm not sure that I thought she was poor per se. She's just not rich enough to have a really nice car.
Gotcha.
Until she scams a bunch of people out of their money.
God bless America. All right, I can accept that. I wonder, like, I would be interested to look into the cases where people did get switched at birth and see if this kind of thing, because, I wonder how much of this really happens. It feels like it would be so unlikely for somebody to just grow up automatically liking the fine arts and literature and all of this without being nurtured to do so. So right. I wonder if this is really something that like, it's a real Fraser Crane situation, I guess is what I'm saying.
It's a very good comparison. He is nothing like his dad.
Not a bit.
Neither is Niles. I don't know how those two came from that awesome dad.
That's what Martin always said. Just, yeah. And there's an episode actually where somebody they grew up around this dude that they found out their father might have had an affair with seems so much more like their father that they start to wonder if that's their dad's kid. It's a fun episode. Nature versus nurture debate. Exactly, Rachel. Yeah. Like, I just really wonder if this is something that actually happens and is just kind of this inexplicable, well, you didn't grow up with we didn't introduce you to this stuff, but you found it on your own anyway.
Well, and the weird thing is Madison she obviously doesn't seem like her parents, but no either. And she doesn't like Mac's parents. Like, Madison doesn't seem like anyone else. She's just a bitchy, typical popular high school girl.
Madison feels pretty basic. So I think that's what we're getting is putting a basic chick in the situation with a ton of money, and we get somebody like her. So you know what I mean? Like, yeah, somebody who's just...
Madison seems like she wants to be Paris Hilton.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess getting on the same show as her is as close as you're going to get, Madison. And yeah, she's obviously kind of demanding. Like, once Mac goes over there and she's like coming down this, did you pick up a dry cleaning? And I'm like, bitch, if you don't go sit the fuck down somewhere in your pleated denim mini skirt, which is adorable. I hate myself for liking it, but I do. All right. Sorry. We are going way off here. Let's talk about this investigation, because that briefing room scene with Keith and what's his name? That fucking Lamb. That's it.
Sheriff
I hate him so deeply. I hate him so much.
He was in my apartment once.
What now?
When I lived in LA, he was friends with a roommate that I had, and he came over for some thing we were having, And he and I ended up just sitting around talking about TV because he saw all my DVDs and was like, who's the Buffy fan? And so we hung out the whole night. He was awesome. He's super cool.
I don't believe you. He has to suck because I hate him.
When I knew he was coming over, I hid my Veronica Mars DVDs because I didn't want him to see them.
You didn't ask him to sign one at the end of the night?
No.
Sign my bra.
I didn't even let him know I knew who he was.
I hear that they're very anti-signing your bra at cons and stuff. It's too bad.
Probably.
I would totally do that for Tom Hiddleston.
Although I did meet the entire Veronica Mars cast at Comic-Con, except for Kristen Bell. Because she had to leave early, but I met everybody else. Yeah, they were all really nice.
Nancy, actor super cool, Lamb super tool.
I just saw that.
Oh, Nancy, that's so corny, and I really like it.
That'll be the title of this episode when you post it.
So, Lamb just keeps interrupting Keith.
Mm-hmm. He's the worst.
Talking over him, publicly disagreeing with him. Y'all came to him and asked for his help. Back the fuck up.
Well, Lamb didn't go to him. The mayor forced that.
But
right, but then he should just be professional. But he's not professional.
He's a little brat about it. He's a tool.
Yeah. Well, he was probably Keith's deputy when Keith was sheriff.
Oh,
and
I
so
didn't even think about that. The reversal of powers there.
Yeah, and he probably had like inferiority complexes and didn't like Keith's authority anyway. And now he's got his job, so he's got to hold that power over him.
Man, it's just like the arrogance. It's just something that's so hard for me. Like, I am very arrogant in my own particular ways. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's straight up true. But there are certain moments where you're being so unabashed about it. Where's your shame? It's really my question.
There are different kinds of arrogance. And his arrogance, I think, comes from being insecure. And yours comes from knowing that you're the shit.
Occasionally.
I'm not saying you always are.
But yeah, he like just the way that he tramples all over everything. It's not just that he's so like convinced that he needs to put in his 2 cents every second, but also you're just shooting yourself in the foot and slowing everything down because you're muddying the message that you're trying to give to your people. It's just so counterproductive. You know, that's the other thing that I have trouble with is I like to be sort of efficient when people do things like that. I'm like, all right, I understand the impulse, but don't you see how you're just making your own life harder also? And he doesn't. Like, he doesn't have that.
Well, I know that you like characters that are really competent, and it doesn't matter if they're a terrible person if they're good at what they do. Mm-hmm. Right? And Lamb can't back up all of this arrogance with anything other than bravado. He's not good at what he does, and he does not want to let Keith be better in an unofficial capacity because that undermines his authority.
Yeah, lack of shame when you're bad at something is really like a kiss of death in terms of my respect, like for characters and for people in life.
Yeah, lack of humility too. Like, you can be humble about something and you can accept like, okay, you know what? You were right about that. I don't have any patience for people who can't admit when they were wrong.
And I understand that can be hard. I understand better than many people because I'm so rarely wrong that when it comes to me, it's just like a tooth being extracted. It's terrible. But guys, Christ. Oh, that's right. I think in an earlier episode, Veronica called him Deputy Lamb to be pointed. No, it was this episode. She introduces him to her dad when he comes in. It's the Deputy Lamb. He has the mayor with him, is what she does.
I think she might call him that in the pilot as well, when he sits down at the table with them. And that might be the second episode. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and the one where he's like, "So, are you going to be celebrating this anniversary of trying to?" Yeah.
You're going to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of your daughter's best friend being murdered?
I hate
Fuck
him
you,
so
Dick.
much. So they decide to like follow the lead with the guitar string, and they go to a guitar shop where there's a bunch of dudes jamming and not paying any attention whatsoever to the front counter. And when they ask,
that shop wouldn't last.
What's that?
That shop would not last.
That's the kind of place that you like, if it does last, you're always like, it's got to be a front for something. Like I think it's Maggie who says that she worked in a video store where they were instructed to be really like condescending to customers to make it more exclusive to not only work there but to go there.
Yeah, but that was in the late 90s, early 2000s when you got a lot of cred for working in an indie video store in New York City.
Stories that she would tell was just so funny, like how self-aware they were.
That place is super famous that she worked at. Yeah, it's like notorious. I'd heard of it, and I've only been to New York a couple of times. I've never been there because I think it was closed by the time I went there.
But
I would have
the name of it
because I was a movie snob.
It did not ring any bells.
Kim's? Yeah, Kim's Video, I believe.
It's a very like, I really expected that name to like have more pizzazz. I worked in a shitty boutique in Soho where they also told us to do that. All right, so that's the thing.
Yeah, it's also kind of a New York thing.
This dude is like tries to act like, oh, this is a very special guitar string that we only get for one particular customer, a man we call Devil Dan. And there's a dude like sitting in the corner tuning his guitar, and he's like, Devil Dan, have you killed any women lately? And he treats it as this huge joke. And I was really suspicious of this guy, but never really thought that he was the killer.
Yeah, I was going to ask
it wasn't like, oh, I bet it's him. It was more like, there's something going on with this dude. He's doing something shady. And I thought it was going to wind up being a red herring type of thing where they think it's him. And then it turns out he was involved in some other like illegal thing. But
well, we do know now what the front this business is for. It's for the murder room in the back.
Murder room. And how long has this been going on?
Where he also they didn't really, I mean, I think the original couple of murders that happened were a couple of years earlier or a year earlier or something. Obviously not close enough to Lily's murder to tie those together in any way.
And Lily wasn't asphyxiated, right? Her head was bashed in.
Yeah. But still, if you have like, that many murders of young blonde women in your little sleepy beach town in Southern California, it's going to be a pretty big news story. They all happen back to back. Yeah, this
is a real like incel 101 kind of situation with this guy. They have that moment where they're walking out and Lamb, it's so annoying that Lamb is the one to kind of like heckle him because Lamb is so terrible that I don't want him to like have an edge on anybody. But when he says something about like, does it hide the feelings of inadequacy strapping on a guitar? For a second, I was like, well, that's almost good. And then he has to rejoin with the strapping on a gun. And I was like, God damn it. That was a really good response. I'm mad about it because they're both so terrible. It's like when it's Umbridge versus Snape. You don't know who you want to win because both of them you have your own baggage about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and he's like saying something about how we bang all the ladies and like sticks his tongue out, and it's just like the most ridiculous over the top thing. So clearly these strange murders, because I'm calling them strange because he locks these women in like a safe. Is that what it was that she was in?
Yeah, or like a little beer fridge.
Is that like a?
It looked like it had like a tap on top.
Did it?
Like tap a keg. So maybe it's a keg.
I didn't even notice that. I'm like I have it on to address stuff. So once we get there, I'll take a look and see. But what a weird way to choose to kill them. Like this long, drawn out suffocation, you know?
Power.
It is, but it's such a passive power. To put her in there and then walk away. It's just really strange, you know, especially coupled with that. If a guy were doing that, my immediate thought would be that he's doing that to distance himself from the actual killing of these women and doesn't want to think about it. But then he takes their bodies out and wraps the guitar string around their neck. So he engages with the body again and like puts his mark on it. So he's clearly not trying to distance himself at all. It's just such a weird combo of methods that I'm really just like, what are you even doing, dude? What is that about? I'm criticizing this man for not killing women, right? Do you hear me?
He's not killing them in the typical way that I understand.
Don't get it, and I'd appreciate it if you would change your method so that I got it. And then you could be a monster that I could understand and quantify, and that would make me much more comfortable. Is that cool with you? Cool. So, murder better. Oh, that sounds like a weird, like, mercenaries slogan. Murder better.
Let's not give people ideas.
So while that whole investigation is going on, because there's like a bunch of red flags with like people who are filming supposedly for a Girls Gone Wild, it's Girls Gone Bad, which it turns out is Jesse Pinkman, who it turns out is not actually affiliated with Girls Gone Bad and is filming merely for his own enjoyment. There's also the guy who like runs the club. Yeah,
he like runs the bar or owns the bar where all these girls have been taken from.
This scene with him and Keith.
And Keith knocks him off his chair.
Can't with this asshole. Like he's so over it. And he keeps doing all this shit. Like he puts his feet up on the desk, and at one point Veronica is like pointing at him through the window because she's got his lunch, and he says something about, I wouldn't mind her calling me daddy.
Ugh. And you know, he says that after Keith says that's
he
my
sure
daughter.
Does.
Like, dude,
you know what he's gonna do to you, right?
No.
You cruising for a bruising? I don't usually use that phrase, but that really feels like what's happening there. That he's literally cruising for a bruising. Like, I almost thought in that scene that this dude was baiting him in order to like get him and Keith in trouble for like what do you call it? Police brutality kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So when the guy just like Keith just knocks him down, and then he looks at him and is just like, well, all right, fine. I guess now I'll cooperate. I was genuinely surprised because I expected him to do something like, you know, kind of mealy-mouthed and petulant. Like, no, I'm going to talk to your superiors kind of thing. But no, that is not how this happens. So I want to say again that I love Keith. And I think part of what I like about him is that scenes like that, where he's talking to somebody who's garbage and they pull some shit, are always so satisfying because he handles them in the way that I, in my fantasies, would want to be able to handle it, but could not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like that, there's the guy who's like about to kill his stepdaughter and he just shoots him right through the window. There's the dude who doesn't want to leave that's renting from Wallace's mom, and he just like goes and fucking terrifies the guy into leaving. Like, it's all very, very satisfying to watch him just like completely indulge, like arguably shitty parts of his nature. But I don't want to say that. It's just, I think other people would call it that. I don't call it that. You know what I mean?
They're effective, though. His methods are effective. He kind of crosses the line, but not so badly that there's really any kind of recourse. Like, what? He had his feet up on the table. I just put his feet down. He's the one who fell off the chair.
Yeah, maybe you wouldn't fucking fall if your feet hadn't been up, you disrespectful fuck. That's what I'm just saying. Yeah. It's wall-to-wall drunk bitches. You mind toning down the language? Oops. Sorry.
Yeah, that guy's a douche. And when they thought it was him, I was like, makes sense.
Oh, yeah, totally, right? He's too confident, though. Like, I wanted it to be him just because I, immediately detested him. So I would love to see him just punished, period. But he did seem like he was too cocky, and that he's also a pretty attractive guy. And not to say that attractive men don't do this kind of shit, but specifically Keith had mentioned earlier that his suspicion was whoever was doing this was sort of a loser. So I was sort of taking his word on that. You know what I mean? So yeah, Keith just MVP, bruv. All right.
Pretty much any time he's around, he's the MVP, though.
That way. Like, you really want him on your side.
And Veronica.
That's true. Yeah. We haven't seen her get in a fight, have we?
No, it doesn't seem her style. I want to see
her like start training, because I feel like she needs to watch her back a little bit more now.
She outsmarts people. She doesn't, because she's very tiny, so she's going to lose in a fight. So she has to be smarter than everybody else, and she is.
She could be Lieutenant Murphy.
Who's that?
Oh, Jamie from the Dresden Files.
I told you I haven't read those.
You injure me deeply in my heart.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Megan knows.
There's so many things.
Dresden in all caps.
I actually do have like the first 7 or 8 books on my Audible account, so I just need the time to listen to them.
I recommend them. I know a lot of people get the first books,
that's why I bought them.
Shit, and I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I don't find them to be as terrible as other people seem to find them. I'm always surprised. Like, I saw somebody recommend starting with like book 5 instead of starting from the beginning, and I was just like, I don't even know what to say to you, because that's such a bad idea that I can't even like form a sentence right now. But
the only thing you can give that recommendation for is the first season of Parks and Rec. Skip it. Otherwise, everything else you need the first season, because it sets every character up for the most part.
Hard agree. And even starting with the second season of Parks and Rec, it always throws me off that Mark is there, because I just like, he's such a nothing that I forget all about him.
Friend Dana quits.
Oh, snap. All right.
Guys, watch Parks and Rec.
Everybody do that, please. And it will make your life better. It just does.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, now let's talk about Veronica, since we're on her subject, because she shows up to give her dad lunch, because she's here to try and sneak her way into the evidence locker. This chick.
Know how she's going to happen in the middle of the day with a bunch of cops around, unless she was just there to sort of case the joint and see who's working there and who she can manipulate.
I think so, because doesn't she go and like check the schedule or something?
She goes and does something. I couldn't really tell what it was.
I'm going and double checking right now, because he gets up and walks away, and she does something. As
she like immediately walks behind his desk. How did nobody notice?
Yeah, okay, no. She turns. Wait, no, that's what it is. He goes and puts something into the mini fridge for her, and she turns around and goes to somebody else's desk. It's like the front desk, like the reception area, and looks through things. So I think she was trying to find out if the evidence locker keys were at that desk somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, every night at 9:30, the whole crew goes out to dinner, and this is the perfect like moment where he's inviting her to come and hang out with him, and nobody else will be around at all, baby.
But he doesn't actually invite her. He just gives her the information, and she's like, all right, you gave me the opening I needed.
Yeah, because he's like, I'll eat your dad's sandwich. Warning. And she's like, all right, bring food. Noted. So that's what she does is she brings a pizza to distract him. And then Weevil shows up.
Weevil.
This
My
might
God.
be the best Weevil scene of the entire show so far.
Agreed. And I love Weevil, but he's so fucking funny in this. And if you listen closely to like the rant that he's going on while she's in the evidence room, it's so funny. Good. I know I live in the barrio, but that doesn't mean that you know we don't want our neighborhood quiet.
He's fucking, I'm going to run for city council. You know what? And the first thing that I'm going to do, and you better let him know that I'm not voting for him. He's lost. And oh my God, the whole thing.
Eli Navarro Esquire.
And I love that the whole time that he's doing this, he is like watching Veronica get up from the, you know, and do, and so he has to keep on ranting and raving and drawing it out. And we have a patrol car every 10 minutes if we live somewhere else. Oh, good evening, Mr. Navarro. Can I help you with anything? Yeah, you know, that's going to be like, oh my God, it was so good. Don't get me started on what it's doing to the property values in my neighborhood. Like, everything about it is so good.
I like that we as an audience, or the show has earned the right to not give us a scene where she asks him to help her. We just understand, like, these two are friends now, and she'll ask him to do her a favor, and he'll do it. I mean, she probably did a head tilt when she said it, but...
Yeah, I love, and I like, too, that a lot of the time, it's, like, something to do with, like, messing with people in authority, which also feels right, you know? Like, he's gonna help her rob the cops. Yeah. That feels on brand. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we even talked about this, but the reason that she's trying to get into the evidence locker is because she wants to get the Crime Stoppers sound file that's on a disc in there, which contains the phone call from the person who tipped the cops off about who killed Lily, and which led to arresting what's his name?
Abel Koontz.
Thank you. I always want to call him Aaron.
So, well, Aaron Eccles.
Aaron Eccles. What's
Koontz. That? Aaron Eccles. That's Logan's father's name is Aaron, so that's probably why that was in your head.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and Koontz. Abel Koontz.
I really need to remember the Koontz, because I just think Dean Koontz and then I'll get it. All right. Low rent Stephen King, Dean Koontz, Abel Koontz.
Low rent
Dean
person.
Koontz is not quite Abel. Abel Koontz.
So when you hear the audio, and it's clearly done with a voice modulator, how the fuck did these police officers go, okay, and not try to follow up? Yeah. It's even more like, wait a minute now. You guys have got to be kidding me.
And not for nothing, but she's got some like hacker friend who can figure this shit out in like 4 tries. But the cops could not possibly break through this.
I don't think
they tried it all either. The one thing that I can say is that she seems to like recognize the voice.
I don't think she did when it was modulated.
No, it's when after Mac decodes it, right?
Yeah. Oh, she totally recognizes the voice once Mac, like, because Mac is playing at a different speed to try to spark something in like Veronica's memory of people's voices, I guess. Do you hear anything you recognize? And when she gets it right, she's like, okay, that you can stop. I know who it is.
How has she heard this guy speak before?
Well, that is a question that I have as well.
Okay.
Unless it's because she called his voicemail that one time.
That's a real thing.
But that's one time you heard someone's voice. But what do you think of that?
That's because what I was going to say was like, if the police had managed to decode it, having the guy's voice, if they don't like know any pool of suspects that contains this guy that they can narrow it down, even knowing his voice wouldn't be super helpful. But
no, it
once
wouldn't.
I started to say that, I realized, well, how does she know his voice? And I have no theory. That doesn't really work.
The only time we've seen on screen that she's heard his voice is when she tracks down his phone number, like his line at Kane, whatever, and hears it. And I mean, she's very smart and a very good sleuth, but that's a tiny stretch.
For those who are not watching on the camera, Jamie gave a weary shrug. Yeah.
But having that tip called in by Jake Kane's company's enforcer, security lead or whatever, what do you think of that?
I really don't know. Like, I'm almost wondering at this point if the murderer isn't somebody that we haven't even met yet. Because I keep wanting to say it's Duncan's dad, but all the evidence is pointing too squarely at him. That now I'm like,
right.
They wouldn't do this quickly, you know.
However, that's his head of security. So I don't think that Clarence Weedman would do this of his own volition unless he's the killer, which I doubt.
And like, it seems like they're trying to lead us to think it's his wife because he pulls her aside and is like, "What did you do last episode?"
Right.
But I don't have any clear idea on what her motivation would be for this. Like, you know,
right. But what would Lily's father's motivation be?
I honestly have no better answer to that than I would for her mom, except for the fact that it's always men and women's lives that kill them. That's the only reason that I suspect him first. And there's
an interesting fact, and I don't know if this changes your way of thinking about this episode in general or the Lily who killed Lily thing, but this episode was supposed to originally air before the last one.
Oh.
Before the Christmas episode.
Interesting. Okay.
And it got switched. I don't think it makes that much of a difference, but when you're putting together the pieces of trying to figure out who killed Lily and this coming after that, this little fact does kind of make you think like, well, is it the mom? I don't understand.
Yeah, that's where I come down. It's just really, I don't understand. Because really, I need to know, because I am assuming that whatever Lily knew was it related to her father's business in some way, or could be related to his business in some way, because of the fact that she was willing to tell Veronica and did not seem to think it was that big a deal.
Oh, when she says to Veronica, I have a secret, it's a big one?
I feel
okay. I was trying to think of like, what do you mean what she knew?
Like, I feel like she was killed because she had found out something. And if it were something really personal about her family specifically, or like, oh, I know that you're not your dad's daughter, or anything like that, I don't feel like that is something that she'd treat that way when she's talking to Veronica about it.
No. I don't think she'd be that blasé about, especially if she found out that they were sisters. She wouldn't be like, I have a secret. I'll tell you later.
So I feel like
she'd be like, dude, we're sisters.
When you're that age, like, you don't really understand that your parents' job is where your entire like life comes from. So you could treat it with a lot more cavalier attitude because it feels really like disconnected. So I could see her having found out something about his business that she doesn't realize is as important as it is. And it's still juicy gossip, but might not like the full impact politically speaking. She might not even understand. So that's really why I kept thinking it had to be him or related to his business, is because of the way that the fact that I really believe that what she said to Veronica about having a secret is directly related to her murder, and the manner in which she said she had a secret did not seem pressing, did not seem like juicy necessarily in the way that like high school gossip is.
Right. It didn't seem like it was, from her perspective, something to be scared for her own well-being over.
So yeah, that's where I'm coming from in terms of my suspicions on that.
Okay. I have to not react in any way.
Pursed her lips and nodded and then exhaled. Gotcha. Well, yeah, so on my weekly check-in on who killed Lily, I'm still saying her dad, but like much more half-heartedly. Like I used to
So what you're saying is you still don't know who killed Lily.
Because I used to be like, I was her dad. Okay. And now I'm just like, her dad?
Was it her mom?
And yeah, what's going on with fucking Veronica's mom right now? Because like, what's that lady up to? We got a call from her to like this phone that Veronica set up, and then nothing.
Yeah, it's been what, like 6 or 7 episodes since the last time she was really looking into the stuff with her mom.
I want to know. I demand to know. Yeah. I feel like, is there anything else about this episode that you wanted to talk about? I'm feeling we jumped around so much in talking about it that I'm sure we missed something that we're going to get off mic and then be like, God damn it, I meant to talk about that. And I can't even think now.
No, because I really think we covered all of the major details. And I watched the one after this one, right after I watched this one today. So now I'm like, but wait.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I really know that feeling. Yeah, I mean, the one thing that we didn't really talk too much about is once Mac finds out, then she like tries to like go over to Madison's house. And
she meets her real mom.
And her real mom seems to know who she is and like gets it. And she's being dragged off on a camping trip with the same attitude that one Candace Solomon would have. And her mom like pulls up.
Not the attitude I would have, because I would actually need to be dragged onto that RV and forced to go. I feel like
Candace would too, actually, now that you say that. Candace would just straight up be like, in the street, nope. No,
I don't. No, Chris and I have had this conversation on an episode. I do not camp. It's dirty. It's sweaty. There's bugs.
And also your bedding gets damp in the evening. Like that's honestly, as specific and weird as that is to point out, that is one of those like things that I just can't get past. When you put your sleeping bag out and then it's time to get into it and it's wet because anyway.
Megan pointed out bio mom, the mom who raised her, is just as real. So yes, that's correct. I didn't mean anything by real mom, not real mom.
Oh yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
I misspoke.
Yeah. So I wonder if she's going to pursue that at all, or if that's like the last we're going to see of that storyline, because I feel like you don't let that go. They live right there, you know?
Yeah. I just like that while Mac is curious about her bio family, she does seem to really love her parents.
It's not like, oh, I hate it's just frustration, really.
Yeah. You know, she's old enough to be left alone for a week or whatever while they're going to Yosemite. But she goes because it's something her family does, and she loves her family. She just isn't very much like them. And she meets her. And they seem to be okay with that.
They do seem to not push her too much. Like, they install a bunch of bookshelves for when she needs more books. And, like, you know, they're not discouraging her.
That's a good dad.
And I do like her meeting her sister. Her little sister, who really reads a ton.
Yeah.
And this like immediate connection that they have. Like, it's just a weird, sad, surreal moment to walk into what could have been your own life.
And her bio mom seems to recognize right away who she is. And probably has always kind of known who she is because of the lawsuit and everything. She's probably been aware of who Mac is and has been sort of waiting for this day to possibly happen.
Yeah, I would imagine so, because they had to be in contact to see whether they wanted to switch back or not, right? Like, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and they live in a small enough place that, like, oh, there she is. She's at the mall, and I'm over here at the Gap, and she's over there at the bookstore.
So weird.
That'd be so weird. I can't imagine that Madison would react very well should she find out.
Madison would flip shit. Yeah. That's, I'm not going to be snotty to Madison, even though she deserves it. I don't have any basis for knowing she deserves it except for that ridiculous birthday.
No, I think she deserves it. She's very unlikable.
Really, and also like practically interchangeable with like 6 other characters that we've seen walking around that school. Cannot tell them apart. Uggs, shorts or mini skirts, very, very long scarves wrapped once around their necks, and long bleached blonde hair.
And it's straight.
Oh yeah,
too.
stick straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't doing that big wave curl thing that they do now. All right. Well, I think that's everything. Anything you want to add before we sign off?
No. Do you guys in the chat have any questions?
I think we're alone now. We're not. We've got 5 people in here.
Gone. Oh, there are only 5?
Yeah, it's 37 people registered. But 6 people total, and that includes you. So 5 other than you.
Can you imagine anyone else playing Keith?
Probably.
No.
Like, I'm not deep into this. So for me, sure. I could imagine a bunch of other actors playing Keith, probably.
He's so perfect. Like, you've seen Galaxy Quest, right? Natasha. Watch Galaxy Quest. Is that a
show or a movie? Okay.
It's a movie. It is a fucking hilarious, like, Star Trek kind of spoof where it's got Alan Rickman in it, and the guy who plays Keith Mars I can't spoil the twist of it. It's so fucking good. It's the best Star Trek movie you'll ever see.
If you're not somebody who was into Star Trek at all, will it still be funny?
Especially because I was not into Star Trek when I saw it. It's about the actors who play the roles on a Star Trek type show who then go into space with real aliens. And it's hilarious. It's got Sigourney Weaver in it, and she's blonde, and her boobs are out. And Owen would love it.
That is a real recipe for success for Owen.
She's so funny in it. It is one of the best movies ever. And Enrico Colantoni, who plays Keith, is one of the aliens, and he's so funny. He kills me.
Tim Allen, Tony Shalhoub. What a weird cast. Okay.
Yeah. Justin Long is in it. Sam Rockwell. It's so good.
Okay.
It is the best. I'm telling you.
Megan asked, do we have the next episode commissioned yet? Yes, we do. Agnes, Agnes, I keep forgetting, has commissioned it for next week at 4:00. So same day,
Yay.
Tuesday at 4:00. I think that one. And then let me check November. Nope, none booked in November yet. That's the last one that's booked is the 30th of October. So,
you guys, we should confer.
Yeah, how many episodes are there this season again? 22, right? So this is the exact halfway point.
It's a full season.
Ooh, you skipped.
This is the halfway point.
Robot-y.
Am I okay now?
Yeah, you're fine. Just had one of those moments where all of a sudden it went, yes. And I was like, what happened? All right, guys. Well, thank you very much, Jamie, for joining me. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah. And thank you to you and Nancy for commissioning this wannabe episode. This is fun to have a partner for this, for a change.
Well, back in the early days, when you talked about maybe covering the show, I was like, please let me co-host. Please let me co-host. And then it became a commissioned one. So I was like, it's fine. I'll just pop on now and then. But Veronica Mars is one of my favorite shows ever. So I love that you're covering it.
All right, everybody who's listening, thank you all so much. And if you're interested in being one of the people who commissions a future episode, you can do that at unspoiledpodcast.com/shop. And you can join the Facebook group for planning the commissions if you are interested in coordinating with other people at facebook.com/groups/spoilmepod. And until next week, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.